Welcome to our traditional mat Pilates class. We'll begin in our supinated position on our back. Let's start with our knees bent, feet supported by the floor, close to our hips, and elbows bent while the hands canopy the head. We'll start with a chest lift. Keeping the low back sealed, I want you to scoop the navel in and round the upper back into your chest lifted position. Keep a space between chin and chest and slowly melt back down. We'll continue this motion, rounding the upper back, exhaling to send the stale air out as you chest lift up and then slowly melting back down again. Use the entire breath to see curve up, rounding, adding flexion into the upper back and that spine. And then use your entire breath to lengthen the top of the spine back down again, letting the shoulders and the back of the head find the mat independently. We'll finish out with one more. The hands are going to stay behind the head here. Let's elevate both feet to tabletop position. Big toes are slightly visible, peeking over the top of the knees. Inner thighs stay zipped. You're sealing the low back against the mat in that imprinted position. You'll see curve or round up into that chest lift. So think about bending the spine from the middle of your back and then slowly melting back onto the floor. So it's a similar movement to our starting movement. We're just progressing it and lifting those legs to a tabletop position. As you chest lift up, the pelvis stays still and the middle back and low back stay connected. Let's do two more. Last one, lower the head, neck, and shoulders here. Feet stay elevated in that tabletop position. We'll crisscross. Extend the right leg out, rotate towards the opposite knee, and switch. Spiraling the shoulders back through center between the transition to the other side. We'll continue rotating the torso, keeping the upper back lifted, and then cinching the rib cage in throughout. Two more. Go ahead and lower the feet down. Stretch the legs out. Stretch the arms straight up. Let's practice our roll up. Exhaling to peel the shoulders away and then sit up to that seated position. Now we're slowly going to reverse that movement, tucking the tailbone underneath the hips, tight glutes here, rounding the low back, middle back, upper back, back of the head against that mat. Powerful exhale. Try to peel each piece of vertebra away from the mat, sitting up tall at the top, and then slowly melting back into the floor, letting the head drop and those shoulders and arms stretch right over the chest. On this next one, we're going to meet in that C-curve position. Arms are going to lengthen forward. Now, what's going to a spine stretch? So I want you to think about hollowing out the navel, stretching the fingertips forward, but rounding the upper back, like you're pulling the shoulders away from an imaginary wall behind you. Now we'll extend the spine, draw the shoulders back over the hips, squeeze the upper back, kind of like we would do in a chest lift. We'll reverse that movement, adding flexion into the spine, rounding the upper back, pulling the navel in, scooping that belly back into your spine, and then extend back up. Last one. Go ahead and re-stack the spine. Shoulders are vertical over those hips. Hands beneath the head, elbows go wide. We're going to go into lateral flexion. Separate the feet slightly wider than hip bone distance apart. Feet are going to flex back. Now let's rotate to the right and then twist to the left. So we're simply rotating the spine, spiraling the spine from right to left before we add in that lateral flexion. Two more. Last one, back to center. Now keep the elbows nice and wide, fingertips light against the head. We'll let the right elbow, right shoulder sink towards the floor, elongating that left oblique. And then we'll come back through center, drawing the shoulders over the hips and then spiraling over to the other side, letting the elbow drop towards the floor, elongating the right side this time, but hollowing out the left side. Good. Think about lifting up tall through the transition rather than collapsing the ribs as you side bend over. Think pulling the rib cage in and keeping that little space between both the hips and the ribs. Last one. Back through center. Arms are going to lengthen out in front of you. We'll tuck, peel, squeeze the back of the hips and then round down onto our back. Arms are going to go flat against the mat. The legs are going to lift to a tabletop position. We'll imprint the spine to start. Stretch the legs out to 45 degrees. Let's roll up and over. The legs are going to lift up. And then we'll use those abdominals in the back of the hips to hover the hips away from the floor, articulating up to the base of our shoulders. Pausing at the top, pushing those arms into the mat. Slowly melt back down. Using your exhale, using those deep abdominal muscles to control the spine back down, letting each piece of vertebra hit. Lower the legs down to 45 and then reverse that movement back up. Lifting the legs up towards the sky first. Now tuck, peel, squeezing the back of the hips away. Lifting the low back and then mid back, rising up to the base of your shoulders. Arms are stretched against the mat. Shoulders stay active, just as your glutes and core stay active. We'll finish out the last one. Let's go ahead and lower the feet down to reset. We'll transition into our double leg stretch from here. Legs start in table, imprint the spine. Now the arms and the legs are going to stretch out to 45 degrees. We'll bend the knees in and then draw the arms in towards the hips. Think about detoxifying the gut as you round yourself into that little ball position. Then you'll extend the arms back, extend the legs out to 45 degrees. Arms circle out and around towards those hips, knees bend into the chest, knees to nose. Arms extend, legs extend. Everything comes in together. Even though that knees and nose are reaching together, your chin stays lifted away from the chest. Last two, and one. Go ahead and lower the feet down. We'll flip onto our belly here in that prone position. Elbows wide, fingertips lightly against the forehead. Use your posterior, chain your back muscles to peel the sternum away from the mat. Keep the tailbone and the hips pinned at all points in time. Pausing at the top, and then slowly melting back into the floor, letting the heads, the hand, find the mat at the same time. We'll extend the spine. Lift the chest. Keep the chin lifted away from your collarbone. Elbows and fingertips stay light against the head. And then you'll lower back down. I like an inhale to lift and an exhale as I lower, but do what feels most natural to you. Just make sure you're breathing. On this next one, we're going to hold our extension. Arms are going to extend out in front of the head. The legs are going to stay long out behind you. Let's swim, keeping the front and the back of the neck long. Little kicks, opposite arm, opposite leg, like you're swimming through a pool of water. Belly button stays pulled back even though it is supported by the ground. And check to make sure that the pubic bone and the hips are still anchored. Final few kicks for 3 and 2 and 1. Lower the head down. We'll sit back over our heels. Let the knees separate and toes come together. Child's pose.